And that's my typical everyday like travel as a full-time editor to the position of wherever your office is. Some places might be different, but that's the usual travel that I do on a 9 to 5 basis as a full-time filmmaker, videographer, editor, whatever you want to call it. And that took roughly, I'd say, 30 to 40 minutes, give or take. And that's the usual, pretty much day in the morning of what I do, of how it's the usual waiting for the bus, lining up, taking the bus, and then going home. And that literally takes an hour out of my own day. And then I come into this office, which is like a shared co-working space, which I work for a digital startup environment. And I come into my workstation. So I have my own tower here. This is a AMD processor with a 1060 GTX graphics card, 32 gigs of RAM, and then I open up my Adobe Premiere. So one of the hardest parts about transitioning from a videographer to like a full-time editor, depending on who you work for, is that sometimes, like in my situation, it's like a self-directed startup marketing agency where things can get repetitive and it's very self-directed. What I mean by that is that it is up to you and like your own experience of how you like to label your files and making sure things like all the files are labeled correctly, the order, the schedule of videos that you're gonna do, because no one's gonna manage you. It's up to you to complete the videos on time, meet tight deadlines, and it's all reliant on you. You might be fortunate enough to, or maybe not, depending on your situation, depending on whether or not you work with a team or by yourself as the sole content creator, and that is my position. And usually my day starts with a coffee. Always gotta start with the coffee first.
Goddamn millennials and their coffee sticks.
So this is the office. This is the bar, the communal coffee place. Then after the coffee, I go and I look at my schedule and see what videos I have to put out for the week, organize my files correctly and label them, and decide which ones are going up this week and which ones are editing, and I'm gonna postpone for next week. And that's the life of an editor. I do this for 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday. And I guess the biggest challenge from doing this versus freelance is that when I was freelancing, I got to do different clients. I got to see and learn about different things. Depending on the person that you apply for or the agency, it might be repetitive. And my biggest challenge as a full-time editor is finding things to spice it up, finding interesting things, and how can I edit differently, how can I approach one video differently and see it from different angles without the task itself becoming very mundane. And it can be as an editor while you're doing the same thing over and over. So you want to challenge yourself, you want to see how fast you can do things, and it's always about being creative, right? That's the whole point of a creative. And I guess one other thing about video editing and videography, like once in a while I would go and film a bit to get more footage to edit. And another tidbit, I guess, challenge is being able to sit for long periods of time. Yes, I know that's not like, at first it might not sound like the most hardest thing in the world, but when your body's not used to it, sitting for hours does get tiring. So what I recommend is, stretching, doing something in between, taking a little break, and taking little mental breaks every hour, 2 hours.
So what's the best part of your job?
The best part about this job is, I would say, the difference between freelancing and this is that this has steady income. So you don't have to worry about constantly trying to get new clients or worry about other clients, whereas as a full-time editor, you just worry about one person and one person's needs, and you get that steady stream of income so you can constantly work on your craft, such as video editing or filming. I would say that's the only.
So what are the worst parts of this job then?
I would say the most challenging things about this position is being able to cater to one person's needs, and that depends on whoever that person is. That might vary. For my position particularly, it is more of like a startup environment, so it's very self-directed. In other words, if someone else had this position, you must have to have video editing experience. You have to know what to do, like labeling your files, having proper organization of your own video files. Because if you're bulk filming like I do, and we film 200 to 300 clips an hour, you have to be very organized. So the biggest challenge is knowing what to do and having confidence in it, as well as meeting, something that I'm not used to before from freelancing, is meeting very tight deadlines. So you have to be like used to that. What's the worst? I say the worst part is this is this room. It has no windows. And that wraps up the day, 8 hours later.